All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nehul Vyas, and I'm a Director of Analytics Consulting and leader of the Tableau Solution Group here at Avaap. We're so very appreciative of the opportunity to present to you all today, and certainly appreciative of your attendance and engagement throughout the session. Before we dig into our topic, I'd like to provide just a quick overview of Avaap and share a little bit about ourselves. Avaap is a cross-platform, industry-specialized global IT advisory and management consulting firm. Our span of consulting and technology resources enable us to build for the future faster and better than before, combining a massive breadth of experienced consultants across several consulting practice areas, with the ability to support clients across multiple sectors and industries. Our analytics offerings span the entire data value chain, from organizational data strategy, where we help clients develop a comprehensive roadmap to their analytics and technology investments, rapid ROI, where the focus is on driving adoption and utilization of an analytics capability across an organization's footprint, and continuous value to focus on sustained and scalable growth. These three pillars are complemented through our ability to execute engagements from robust and transformative solution delivery, supporting enterprise data initiatives, Tableau dashboarding quick starts, Tableau technical health checks, with a focus on the infrastructure, setup, and configuration of a Tableau environment, and we even serve as a managed services provider to some of our clients to fully host their Tableau capability, accompanied with full service operational SLAs and hands-on maintenance and administration. Before we get into introductions for our presenter today, I wanted to quickly mention that if you do have a question at any time during the presentation, please do use either the QA box at the bottom of your screen or the chat function. This session will also be available on demand within 2 days of its recording. Now, it's my distinct pleasure to welcome my colleague, one of the best in the biz, Stacey George, consultant in our data and analytics practice. Stacey, thank you so much for joining today. I know you've got a power-packed presentation and an awesome, compelling topic, so I don't want to belabor the intros anymore. The floor is yours, Stacey. Take it away.
Thank you, Nehul. Excited to be here. As Nehul mentioned, my name is Stacey George. I'm a consultant in our BI and A practice. On the slide, I just put a few highlights of what my experience has been and what my perspectives are as we dive into different project offerings that we partner alongside with clients for. A few of those highlights, I have a depth of delivery with the public and higher education sectors. Those are my bread and butter, but of course, happy to partner alongside with any data initiative. In addition to that, kind of the lens that we are going to focus on today is also something I'm pretty passionate about, thinking alongside the lines of implementing statistical testing, predictive modeling, machine learning, really giving a robust feeling to the data offerings and visualizations that your companies and your projects might be craving. And then in addition to that, just to give you guys some confidence in who I am and what our practice in general has to offer, I am Tableau, Alteryx, and ProSci certified, which is pretty cool, and of course have some coding background in SQL and R. Before we jump in, I do want to just kind of level set some expectations. So as you can tell by the title of today's presentation, the confident decision making, it's a little bit more of like a higher level concept. With that, I kind of broke down the approach to first go through what some of our customer experiences have been like, what common themes are, and then of course some like actual practical things that we've partnered alongside for. Moving from the experiences to the approach and how we implemented different solutions for our clients. And then, of course, really hitting on why Tableau, how Tableau really provides the holistic package to make some of this data journey accessible and relevant and exciting. Of course, wanting to highlight some of the results of all of those projects, and then ending with final questions. I will tease out as well that within each of these sections, I'm a pretty pragmatic approach. So we'll first talk about just generic themes within each of these areas, and then of course, diving down to some relevant examples. With that, to get us started, I wanted to talk about the consumer experiences kind of that we approach when we engage in data projects. Oftentimes, the clients that are coming to us, they have historical approaches of problem solving based off of experienced employees' gut reactions. So really experts in their fields, they know what they're talking about, they know their industries really well, they have a background, education, and of course their own passion and excitement for the sectors that they're working within. Oftentimes, by the time that they're reaching out to us, they're excited about the idea of a data-driven culture. They've been collecting data for a few years. Big data, of course, in general is pretty hot right now. And they want to really start marrying both their experience and their goals with the actual data, with things that they can measure and provide some robustness to some of these gut reactions, some of these assumptions that they've been making for years, maybe even decades within their problem solving. And then with that zeal for data, with their expert opinions and actual experiences, they really want to have a movement for improved processes. Their current things are good. They have been working for years. However, they want to have more confidence in the efforts that they're putting in and the impact that they're having from those efforts. That's typically some of the themes that we're seeing with people who start to embark down some robust data decision solutions. And then, of course, in practice, it's easy to say that we have clients that are excited about this stuff, but in order to make it more digestible, we have had successful implementations with statistical robustness, specifically the ones listed here. We've worked with clients to have some program evaluation for government interventions for households at risk for neglect and abuse. We've done some predictive modeling for fraud probability scores in unemployment claims, done some fuzzy matching for individuals across programs to expand welfare program coverage to generate stronger health outcomes. And then we've also done some student progress metrics for transparency's sake. So that's the frame and the lens that we're looking at, really hitting on this concept of people and clients coming in with their experiences, with their knowledge base, their perspectives of years, boots on the ground in the field, starting to have some data, wanting to really marry the two of those together, both that human perspective and something that they can provide a little bit more of a fallback into, oftentimes a lens of statistical analysis or in general, just data insights. So that's kind of how we come in, and I wanted to really pick apart what our approach has been, both in high-level themes and then again, of course, in practice, so that you guys can really start to see the momentum and how to move forward for your own organization. So in that typical breakdown fashion, going over some of the themes of our approach, we really like to partner with clients to gather requirements and that industry knowledge from the experts on site in the fields. So we acknowledge that it can't be an either or. It can't just be gut reactions, people saying, well, this is how I've seen it work. This is why we go in this direction. But it also can't just be a computer spitting out random answers that you just have to trust based off of black box solutions. We want to have a true and equal partnership. So oftentimes it starts off with working with clients to understand their perspectives, their knowledge base, and get to know the lenses that they're using first and foremost. And that informs the data solution that we kind of move towards. So picking back off of that second bullet here talks about, from those requirements, we want to implement some type of statistical component, something that has some rigorous data element to it that's best suited for the problem at hand. So that being said, it's not always going to be a logistic regression. It won't always be a neural network or a Spearman correlation. We really want to come and partner along clients to have the best robust solution for their unique situations. We understand that we're not going to be the experts on different things, but we can, through that requirements gathering and with our background within data itself, figure out a perfect solution to, again, really combine these two elements of human and data interactions. And then, of course, with that, we realize that oftentimes our clients, they're new to data, they're excited about data, they want to embrace it, and they want to really elevate their decision-making and their actions moving forward. But oftentimes, some of this data language, the lingo that comes with it, is a little bit confusing. They don't understand what's happening. When you hear things like statistically significant, it's hard to truly conceptualize that. So the flavor that we want to add is really bringing in an education of that, being as transparent as possible for our solutions, that it's not just here's a number, trust us, or here's what we ran with, please implement it. We want the client to fully understand how we're coming to those conclusions and feel confident moving forward with them, not only for their own sake, but also to knowledge share across the board so that if there's ever another stakeholder that pushes back onto an action, they do have the confidence and the ability to not only explain from their perspective as a human why they thought it was a good idea, but also to be able to leverage really rich data insights to prove a point where it's like, this is a direction that we're going in, and here's why. And then, of course, this last bullet under the themes, really hitting home that idea of partnering. It's really important to understand that people and expertise, they have their place and they have their perks with it. And then, of course, really coming alongside the resiliency of time-tested statistics. So what that has looked like in practice, again, pulling from those examples that we've already highlighted on the first client experience slide. For that customer that was doing program evaluation for interventions into households for risk and abuse, at risk for neglect and abuse, we've worked with their experts to really categorize and develop surveys in order to understand different themes to look at in households, and then testing before and after a program intervention to see and measure the changes that their actual programs were having in the lives of their customers. And then with that, not only having some type of survey to look at the results, but adding a level of that statistical robustness that we're talking about today. We created some scoring algorithms and implemented 2 sample t-tests to again show that, yeah, families are seeing differences in this direction and they are truly statistically significant. Moving down, we also have worked with that predictive modeling for fraud probabilities in unemployment claims. What that looks like, again, working with experts in that field to identify historical patterns and start to understand what were elements that they wanted to hone in on to actually test if this element was predictive of fraud, yes or no. And then, of course, pulling in all of those insights, creating a logistical regression that then outputs scores of actual claims to really give them something solid to plant into and then further their investigations on an individual level. And then honing in on that example of fuzzy matching for individuals across programs to make sure that their health outcomes were as successful as possible by leaning into all of the welfare programs they qualified for. Again, working with the human side to diagnose what a match threshold would look like, what they were comfortable with, what elements to really be seeing if there was a match across different programs, and then, of course, pulling in all of that information to create probabilistic algorithms from that. All right, so that was a lot of talking, a lot of really digesting the themes, the approaches, but I really wanted to hit home, how does Tableau fit into this? Why Tableau? Why are we talking about this in today's session? And there's a lot of pros by pulling in Tableau into all of this statistical analysis, this human experience. And those themes simply being that Tableau is consumable. It's something that clients can really lean into and start to easily dip their toes into what their data is saying. It's interactive and actionable. You can slice, you can dice, you can refresh. It's not something that you have to kind of really roll up your sleeves and spend 3 days in just to understand one simple question. Instead, it really partners alongside for transparency. In addition to that, it's collaborative. It's a one-stop shop where different stakeholders who are trying to decide what's next for the organization or how to spend funding or if something is successful, they're all seeing the same thing in real time, which has proven to be pretty helpful. Building on this concept of transparent, especially when you add in a level of statistical analysis, Tableau in and of itself allows you to really expand upon and show the equations that you're putting into. It shows quickly different signals instead of just looking at a really complex package from R or something. Tableau really allows it to be accessible, really allows it to be exciting. And then, of course, flexible and scalable, common thing you see with Tableau. And then it partners really well for efficient data prep and analysis. In order to really allow people to see what we mean by this, we do have a little demo today, so I'm going to go ahead and switch screens here. What we're going to be seeing on this screen really highlights the concept of the student success metrics case that we talked about before. So in here, it's going to be mocked data just so we can hit home the concepts that we're discussing. But the frame of the problem that you're seeing in the data on the screen is the idea that, let's say, because of COVID, a lot of schools are worried that their students are falling behind, and that if, for instance, their math courses, they're not doing as well, then there might need to be some type of intervention to catch their students up to where they need to be in order to continue to have a successful career in their K-12. What the data in this dashboard is showing a program intervention. So it takes a pre-score, so the first score of a test that a student is taking in math, and then it has like a post-score, a second score for that same exact test after they've had some math intervention to really see if the programming of a learning recovery had some type of impact on the students that were enrolled. So keeping that in mind, the goal of this dashboard is truly to inform, does a program intervention in learning recovery for students that may or may not have fallen behind because of COVID, has this program intervention improved their experience in math long term? So as you look at this dashboard, a few things to call out right away. You have this first confidence metric, which is really cool. You could go ahead and then start slicing and dicing on like a 98% confidence interval, 95, 90%, whatever your organization is comfortable with. You have a little bit of range to see the difference in the impact that the program's having. More to come on how to exactly see that, but know that it's cool. It's a dynamic feature that you could really cater to whatever confidence interval your program is interested in. On top of that, there's traditional filters like lunch program, honing in on students that are on free and reduced or standard lunches, and then a filter for other information such as parent level of education. And I'll show you how those work in the dashboard in a minute, but it's really cool. It's another one of those ad hoc experiences that Tableau allows you to have, where you can hone in on different aspects of your population and see how those people are doing from your program intervention. Moving down the dashboard, a few KPIs. We wanted to show the average first score of individuals. So again, that first score before the program intervention, how they were doing. The average second score after the program intervention. So, you know, on first sight, it's amazing. On average, people were improving their math scores after this program was taught at schools. And then, of course, just for, you know, an anchoring sake, we have the average score difference. So just subtracting these two, but seeing that they're improving by 2.95 points from where they started at to where they ended after the program. And then as you move down, we have this first box that has the average scores. So what you're seeing here is by institution. So we have about 5 schools here that actually took this learning recovery and put it into the classrooms. You're seeing the number of students that went through this programming at each of the schools. And then right here, this simple, elegant little yellow dot is actually where we're pulling in from that statistical element too. The yellow dot identifies if it was a statistically significant change from the program. So as you can see, the first 4 schools had a change and it was statistically significant, but the lack of the yellow dot on school E means it wasn't statistically significant, which is pretty cool to just simply have that takeaway, especially for people who might be a little intimidated by statistics. But then on top of that, you can see the coloring here. So anything that's blue is going to be a greater than a previous score. Orange is a less than previous. So again, these first 4 schools are in the blue. That means they're doing better after the intervention. This last school is in orange, so it actually performed a little bit worse. And then what the bars here are showing are the first score that the school had on average, which is nice. So you can see about how much better they're doing just by referencing that first score in the black line, and then the second score is indicated by the colored bar. As you move over on the dashboard, there's individual scores on this scatter plot, so you can really start to see the spread of where the students are at. And then these lines are anchoring you. The first score on average is at a 66. The second score on average was a 69. So again, you're seeing the students that are kind of in this quadrant here are not doing so well. The students that are in this quadrant actually had like a higher than average first score, but a lower than average second score. So these people, you might want to hone in on a little bit more, understand why they're not doing as well the second time around. Of course, these are the ones that are doing pretty well. They're outperforming both of the averages. And then it might be interesting to see why some of the orange people, when they're scoring above average to begin with, why they've dipped down. And then this little quadrant up here, it's pretty cool. You would see people who performed worse than average on the first score, saw some improvement and did way better on the second score. So this kind of population of students you might really want to hone in on to see what works for them, how they kind of rebounded so quickly, and just like the different traits that really went into that population. And then of course, just because I know people are always curious, we have like a student details down here to really hone in on the individual level, and then maybe speak a little bit more to what that student is like. In addition to that, it's just pretty sweet, as Tableau natively is very interactive, very filterable. So for instance, if someone wanted to quickly understand more about this school E, why it dipped down than the other ones and why it wasn't statistically significant, you could click on that orange bar and it filters. So you're immediately starting to see that for school E, it's having an above average first score, which is pretty neat, and then a slightly below second score. So you can start to really hone in on what these population groups are doing, why it's that way. You could then, of course, filter from there on different slices of students, and then you can scroll through and investigate. So I say that just because, didn't mean to X out. I say all of that to really show how actionable data can be and how seamless statistical testing can be implemented into Tableau dashboards. Again, as you're seeing, this little yellow dot quickly is pulling some insights away. And then in that idea of wanting to be transparent in how these scores are being calculated, we like to really dive in on some of like the math behind it. So if any of our stakeholders were skeptical or didn't understand, really breaking down the components that goes into statistical testing and linking out to more documentation if people wanted to know exactly what a two-sample t-test is. Now with that little demo to really show exactly what we're talking about and how to really conceptualize what is possible with this partnership of expert knowledge, statistical testing, and how Tableau really pulls it all together, I'm going to pivot back into our slide deck and really talk now about the results that people see when they start to leverage all of these components together. So some common themes that our clients have really leaned into and been excited about from the marriage of all of these components is the idea that you can truly balance the experts in standardization with statistical analysis. You're able to interact with confident decision-making. Everything's transparent, it's digestible, you can really measure what is occurring and how you're moving towards your company's goals. You can collaborate across stakeholders. Tableau is something that you can easily add access to, and so people from different areas in your company or different perspectives can all be looking at the same thing and offering insights. That kind of piggyback into this innovative visibility. I feel like so many times meetings get eaten up about like what's happening, how we're doing towards the goals, and there's a constant dialogue about what things need to be tweaked, what things can be changed, and Tableau kind of immediately makes it visible and allows you to see exactly what's happening. And sometimes it even surprises you with the filters and the capabilities that are native to Tableau. You can really slice and dice in ways that maybe no one in the boardroom would have thought of initially until they've seen it in an interactive way. provides a source of truth for everyone to lean into. Again, those ad hoc analysis with the filters is a huge benefit. Fresh insights, Tableau allows you to refresh on a current base, on a cadence. So it's not something that you have to say, well, 5 years ago, these were the data findings. It's something that you could have same day, same quarter, whatever makes the most sense for your problems at hand. And then, of course, continued clarity into pain points, understanding exactly where things are falling short or where might need further interventions. In practice, what people have then seen from solutions that partner statistical testing into their Tableau dashboards, honing back in on the examples that we've kind of carried through without the presentation. For the program evaluation for the interventions into households at risk for neglect and abuse, they were able to use these type of Tableau statistical solutionings to have a clear understanding of where to channel their funding, how to rework their survey questions in order to get better and more rich data once it was visualized, and they can understand quickly which families require further intervention. For the predictive modeling for fraud probability, it was something that could, when all pulled together, stop financial bleeding, prioritize their backlog of claims, pay people that were in need, and of course, unify their team efforts. There was a lot of different teams kind of charging towards the same goal. And by pulling all of these elements together in one area, they were able to truly move forward at a unified front. For the fuzzy matching individuals across programs, they were able to bridge gaps for individuals that might have lacked information on all of the things they qualified for, and that was able to really set up those clients for maximum success in their health outcomes. With that, that was a quick overview of a lot of different topics, but we'll head into the question section. Any questions out there?
First and foremost, Stacey, fantastic job. There's a lot of deep experience insights in what you just reviewed with us. So yes, I do have several questions for you, but really kudos to you on really breaking out the crayons and giving us a really strong functional overview. A couple of different questions. I mean, obviously, the centerpiece of this is around Tableau, some of its capabilities. You talked about robust statistical analysis within a dashboard. Tableau offers, again, a bevy of capabilities. Is there an opportunity to have a little bit of a plug and play with that statistical analysis within the dashboard, given Tableau's innate capabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. So Tableau is very collaborative in nature. So not only are there a few analytics that are inherent in Tableau Desktop itself, where you can start to pull in things like min, maximum, trend lines, confidence intervals. So they do kind of give that foundational level within the software itself. But then on top of that, through the use of calculated fields, that's when you can start to really hone in on things with standard deviations, with standard errors. Those are functions within their calculated fields that you can have consultants or people in your own industry come in and really implement those equations themselves. That use case of the calculated fields is actually what we've been leveraging primarily in some of our model monitoring that we talked about in our fraud dashboards, using the calculated fields functionality to give visibility on how those models were performing. Same thing with the program intervention, replicated, pulled in some of the calculations inherent in Tableau in order to do the statistical testing, such as a two-sample t-test. And then above and beyond that, there is capabilities to partner alongside R and pull in some of the even more robust packages that are offered within that software.
Yeah, walk us through your perspective on this, because Tableau itself is a very intuitive product, right? And the ability to drive self-service, the entire democratization of data to get it into the hands of what I would consider everyday user, right, is really right in front of them. But you mentioned things like R and other complementary either solutions or skills, technologies that really work well with Tableau. I guess from your perspective, if someone is looking at this and, hey, I may be a business user that is interested in continuing to evolve my statistical analysis, Give us some tips and I guess techniques or just lessons learned from your growth experiences and how a person can cultivate those skills. And what are some of the more important elements that you would recommend folks get familiar with? For example, maybe it's R, maybe it's another type of language like Python. Walk us through some of that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I encourage anyone who's curious to just dive into what the statistical textbooks or best practices are. It's definitely intimidating, so my gut reaction is we would love to partner with you. I myself geek out about statistics and think that it is something that can and should be approachable. I will admit that the world of coding and the world of advanced textbooks is just a lot. It's a lot to dive into by yourself, but it's something that we as a company here at Avaap really prioritize and think it is accessible. We love to teach, we love to be transparent. I've found that some of the ways to really dip your toes into it, again, first and foremost, understanding from like an academic perspective, what even is statistical testing? So just doing some quick Google research on like what it is, what those equations are, and then from there, either replicating yourself, it's actually fairly easy to kind of open up Tableau in those calculated fields. And fortunately, things like a standard deviation, that is a pretty complex equation, but Tableau's already made it accessible. It's something that you just have to type in standard deviation and then the variable you want to conduct that on. So there is a lot of ways where you can just seamlessly ease into the whole buzzword-filled world of statistical analysis in Tableau. However, with just kind of bite-sized approaches, specifically, first and foremost, understanding what's possible, and then messing around with some of the fields, I think it's something that can be accessible for everyone.
Yeah, and I think where you excel, and I think a lot of our teammates excel in, is the representation of that statistical analysis is still very functionally understood, right? And it's not that we're dumbing down the concepts, but we're representing those concepts in very easily understood ways. Walk us through some of your experiences and maybe it's after you've developed a dashboard that has more robust, elegant statistical analysis and computations within it, and how you kind of share some knowledge transfer insights to a client to get them to understand and adopt to it, right? And the whole nature of this is giving them an opportunity to utilize it, but to utilize it, it has to be easily understood. Walk us through some of that experience because you excel at it.
Yeah, great question. I love doing this for clients. I think the light bulb should be accessible for everyone and it can be had. So typically my approach is oftentimes like decision makers don't necessarily need to know the back end equation within the dashboard. They just want to look at something and immediately have an insight where it's like, okay, this is important, or this is the confidence level, or this is how something is performing. So in Tableau, integrating just like colors or little dots, such as that yellow statistical significance dot in the demo. So visually just providing something simple to really ease stakeholders into it of like, this is how statistics can be married into our solutions. And it first and foremost doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's something that it's like, hey, this is a thing and this is a statistical insight that you can lean into in your decision making, and making it very visual, very simple, and not overwhelming in all of the other important noise that is going to be occurring on something like a Tableau dashboard. But then taking it a step further and not just settling and saying, just trust us, just trust the statistics. But I myself really like to have some second or third tabs within a dashboard that really does break it down column by column, where it's like, step one, this is what's happening, and this is how we're breaking down the equation. Step two, this is what's next happening into your dashboard. I find that clients just want to have some of that guidance instead of having a trust us, it's a black box approach. And so really opening up a dialogue, showing links or breakdowns of what's happening to their data is something that has proven helpful in rallying individuals to embrace some more statistical robustness in their solution.
Yeah, which is fantastic because it builds confidence in the user. And as they're becoming more confident with the product, with the dashboard, they get even more inquisitive and have a catalyst of ideation with the data, which is fantastic. Stacey, George, wonderful job today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge nuggets with us. Hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks.